Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, another podcast, another week. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll go with that one. So, as you could probably tell from the little bit of background noise here, I am once again trying to maximize my time. And also, as mentioned before, whenever I get motivation, it doesn't always happen to be at the best time. So, we're going to kill two birds with one stone. So, by the way, in that same vein where we're talking about when you get motivation and you just got to jump on it, today I had the most interesting motivation in the most odd place. And for those of you that are wondering, well, where was it? CuriousJohn and or LifeGeneralist, whatever comes to mind when you think of me. I was in the commode. Commode, I think is the word. And before you guys get some dirty thoughts of me in the proverbial throne, no, I was peeing. Because I like giving you guys details. So anyways, I was doing my bodily fluid regimen because I drink a lot of water, workouts and such. And I was thinking about a little bit about my past. And I was thinking a little bit about how sometimes I do prioritize work a little too much. And I know that of myself. I know that I do put a lot of weight into my work. How I define work might be many, many different things, right? I do spend a lot of time and energy in those things because there is a certain value associated with those things, whether it's monetary value or pride when it comes to projects. But I was thinking about that, and there's times at work, especially with my job, my normal day job, which, because, this doesn't pay the bills, there's no ads on this. I was thinking about how, there's been countless, and that's not hyperbole, that is real. There's been countless times where I go to work early, I leave late, I come in the next day early, and I do it often, and very, consistent, if you will. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, a little bit of my mind wanted to go back into the recesses of regret, right? Regretting spending so much time and energy on work, and regretting what I've maybe not prioritized or maybe not focused on because I've been so focused on work. And while that memory was in my brain for a few seconds, there's definitely a time where very quickly I shut that negative Nancy mindset out of my brain. And it's not because I don't think that I do have a slight imbalance in my priorities at times. It's not because of that. It's because I have to really quickly cut myself off and really have to check myself, because that mindset is dangerously close to the woe is me mindset. And I've told you folks a million times, I hate those people, and hypocrisy is something that bothers me tremendously. So very quickly I had to check myself. And while that original idea came from the concept that I was a little disheartened, I suppose, with the idea that, I have put a large commitment into my day job, if you will, and not a lot has come of it, right? Not a lot has really resulted from my dedication and my sheer kind of focus on being consistent and dependable. And it's funny because if there's one thing that's a reoccurring idea within, or a reoccurring concept within my annual reviews, are always my dependability, my willingness to be a team player, my ability to be consistent and be counted upon. And those are all consistent. They've been consistent for a very long time now. That only comes from sacrificing things like that, right? Being dependable, being on time, not being late, being able to not even think about whether or not you're going to come in, because you've been so dependable and so consistent that you don't think twice about it. And while that's come with certain sacrifices, whether that's me, not focusing on maybe certain other aspects I should be more often than not, I do think that those things have also opened far more doors for me in said career than not, right? Like, and I speak to this foreshadowing, if you will, on future podcasts that I'll talk about. But if it wasn't for my dependability, if it wasn't for my reliability, if it wasn't for the idea that I am a person that is there, gets the job done, and accomplishes things, and you don't have to babysit me, you don't have to keep an eye on me, you don't have to really just worry about whether or not I'm doing something. If it wasn't for those things, there'd be a very high likelihood that other opportunities, other doors wouldn't have ever even presented themselves, let alone open themselves to me, for me. And that's just a greater analogy. What it really came down to is I was able to step back a little bit, right? We talked about stepping out of the box in a previous podcast. I was able to step out for a second, get a little bit of perspective, get a little bit of clarity, ground myself a little bit, and come to the realization that, that's a greater analogy for life. Everybody has things they regret in life. Everybody has things that they wish they would have played out differently in their minds. They would have made different decisions. They would have asked for this or done that, turned left when they went right. They would have made better decisions, whatever. And you cannot go back sometimes and just spiral into the ideas of what you coulda, shoulda, woulda. Because there will always be a coulda, shoulda, woulda. And you have to just let yourself live your life. The decisions that you've made are decisions that you've made. The things that have occurred have already occurred. All you can control is literally the moment. All you can control is what you're doing right now as you're listening to me. You are listening to me on maybe headphones or on your car or whatever, and all you can literally do is focus and react and act based on the exact thing that is going on in the exact moment as you're listening to this. There's nothing else. So focusing on the past is a moot point. It's an unnecessary point because it causes a tremendous amount of turmoil and a tremendous amount of angst in a person when they feel like they could have done better, they could have done more, they could have accomplished this, done that. And it doesn't change anything. You are where you are. It goes back to what I said, like you are in wherever you are, whatever room you're in, whatever car you're in, wherever my voice is coming from. This is where you are now. There is no past, there is no future. Nothing is as concrete for you as the breaths that you are taking at this moment. There's nothing else. And so for you to focus on the past and mull it over and give yourself angst, it's a moot point. Nobody's telling you not to learn from the past and take lessons from those things. But what I'm saying is that there's no reason to stay in a negative headspace. And you know when you're being negative versus when you're just being analytical and logical. There's a big difference. And I will say one last thing about this. As we've talked about in other podcasts in the past, you need to also come to the conclusion and make peace with the idea that the decisions that you made are also a byproduct of who you are at this moment. And if you could go back and change things for what you feel like would be the better option, there is a very high likelihood that the decision that you made at that time that ended badly or poorly or didn't go your way is likely a byproduct of you are likely a byproduct of that decision today. If there is something that you don't like that you did, right? You didn't go to school right away and you had to go to school later in your life. Well, you can't not take that into account, because those years that you didn't go to school, the years that you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you learned lessons. You likely grew in different ways, and you likely developed a motivation to bring you back into school. And those are the things you have to realize, that you right now, both the good and the bad, are a byproduct of the decisions that you made. So removing bad decisions is just as bad as removing good decisions. So you have to be thankful for the positive choices or the positive things that you did with those negative decisions and the growth that you made from those things, because they're not just individual. You can't just pick and choose if you want to do the positives but not the negatives. It's not the way things work. So definitely take any analyzation, any thoughts of your past, take them and use them as motivation for sure. But definitely don't vilify yourself because you didn't live a perfect life. That doesn't exist. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a simple one today. I just thought it was an interesting idea that came to mind where I thought about work. It kind of progressed into a greater philosophical debate about life choices as a whole. That's sometimes how my brain works, folks. That's today's podcast. As always, I'll tell you folks, like I always tell you, if there's things that you want to hear my opinion on, there's topics or interviews that you would like to take part in or you would like to recommend for me to reach out to people, let me know. LifeGeneralist on Instagram. Any feedback is also very welcomed. But that's it. Hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully this has been worth your while and your time. I'm LifeGeneralist, and this has been Curious John.